So Letitia James was interviewed on the Chris Hayes podcast about her mortgage fraud scandal, and well, it didn't go well for her in terms of body language because there is guilty all over her face, as you're about to find out. Thanks to Green Lives Matter for sharing this, Ultra Frog 17. And well, the clip starts like this.
I should be held to the same standard as Donald Trump, but somehow what I did was basically similar to what Donald Trump engaged in.
She's saying that, well, people are saying that she said at some point, so many Democrats said at some point, like Joe Biden as well, that nobody is above the law and she should be put to the same standards that she put Donald Trump through. But she wants to make the case that this is not the same. And that's when we started getting into trouble.
And there's just no comparison. The allegations against me are totally baseless. And again, it was based on a 2-year investigation of his assets.
Two things here. She begins to talk about Trump and not only make sure to mention him twice, and especially after saying that everything that is being thrown at her is baseless. And when she said that, you notice that she had that little fluttering, very quick blinking of her eyes, which, doesn't have a meaning in itself, but we know that it's an emotional marker. Something happened in her, which is not happening all the time, but when she said that those accusations are baseless, there was an emotional reaction. That is the way that we read body language, that we adapt to every person. And in this case, of course, it's not only the person themselves, Letitia James in this case, but the context. What is going on? Well, she's being asked a question and she is being pressed about this question. Would you think that you should be held accountable the same way that you held Trump accountable? Oh, it's not the same. This is baseless, but there is one emotional marker in there that we should take into account. And again, she immediately goes on to say that whatever happened with Trump, that was the real deal.
And again, it was based on a 2-year investigation of his assets. And that judgment was issued by a Supreme Court justice. And there was an argument before the First Department Appellate Division. And
notice that when she keeps talking about Trump, she keeps doubling down on Trump. But when she wants to say that it was an action of the Supreme Court justice, she has that emotional reaction again. She is speaking, and you can notice that there's another rapid blinking again. I counted 5 blinks. Let's count them. As usually, that fluttering is like 4 or 5 blinks that are so quick that we could talk about a fraction of a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them. Yeah, 5 of them. Enough to say that it's a fluttering and it's an emotional reaction. So when she says that it's baseless, whatever is she being accused of, and that there was this, what was the word that's
issued by a Supreme...
The judge was issued by a Supreme Court justice on Donald Trump. She also has certain doubts. I'm going to say doubts. The appropriate way to say this is that there's something happening. There's something happening in her that every time she addresses this, not only her case, but Trump's case, there's some doubts in there so far. But this next part, you're going to see that it gets even worse for her. I think that she should refrain from doing this podcast.
And there was an argument before the First Department Appellate Division, and we are awaiting a decision.
She did a very quick tongue jot. Could be just, moisten her lips. It tends to get dry when you're nervous. There's only a sign. There's a possibility that she's just, wetting her lips. Sometimes this is very different when you have a tongue jot, when you show your tongue for a split second. That is different because that's when people are regretting what they said. I remember a video on Brad Pitt I did long ago, is somewhere in this in this channel, but this is a bit different. Still, you see that her neck and her face are really straight. There's a bit of tension in there. We cannot see her shoulders as we could want to see if that there's a single shoulder shrug, if there's some shrugging, but her face so far is, well, speaking volumes.
I will respond to these baseless allegations at the appropriate time and in the appropriate way.
She is talking about baseless allegations. She is more composed right now, and she is leaning into the mic, and she is making this emphasis with her body. She wants to make. I think that she noticed that she is a bit nervous, and she's doubting herself. And she has, okay, I'm going to reinforce the fact that these accusations are baseless, and I'm going to use my body to do that. Notice that there was an adjustment of her body language that was on purpose.
But I am 100% confident.
What happened here? I've told you a couple times that when we shake our head, it's not only to say no. Sometimes, especially in the Western world, we use this shaking our head to emphasize something. But she does both things, something that we have seen Kamala Harris do as well. Okay, you can emphasize with this when you say that something is delicious, for example, but immediately after she uses the nodding to emphasize. There's a kind of contradiction in there. I'm going to play it again so you can watch it for yourself.
But I am 100% confident.
Notice that she says, I am 100% confident. I'm gonna give her a pass on this one, but but she's trying to make sure that she drives the point home. I'm confident. She does that.
But I am 100% confident.
But also the rapid blinking. You saw that? We have kind of a contradiction. We have the kind of a contradiction of the shaking and the nodding and also the rapid blinking. I'm gonna say that she's not so sure. She's not that confident of what she's saying. And I'm gonna say this about this. And that's okay. Maybe she's not so sure, but she wants to appear sure of this. But she's not doing a very good job at this.
Confident that it will not result in any criminal indictment or action against me, and that it is nothing more than a revenge tour.
Again, she says that she is confident, quote unquote, that there's not going to be any criminal indictment against her, but what happens?
Or action against me.
Another fluttering. I counted like 5 blinks. You see that every time that she refers to whatever could happen to herself, or what happened to Trump, like trying to compare both accusations, she has the same emotional reaction. She has this fluttering with her eyes. So that tells you something, that when she's talking about the situation that she's in, she's got an emotional reaction. She's nervous about that. So she's not that confident. She knows that she is in, well, deep stuff.
It is nothing more than a revenge tour, and that Donald Trump just ultimately got to the J's, and I was next.
She is kind of shrugging off that at the end.
J's, and I was next.
Like, I was next. I have it's something natural because Trump is in this revenge rampage.
The key allegation, again, it sounds like you don't want to address them here, but I'm just going to put it out so people understand that.
Notice that when the host says the key allegation, and the key allegation, of course, is the main event. The main event of what's going on with Letitia James. She's got a very particular reaction. Look at her again.
Sounds like you don't want to address them here, but I'm just going to put it out so people understand that.
It's quite complex. I'm going to try to break down for you who are listening to this and cannot watch. You see that there's a kind of wetting of the lips again. Has been like less than 30 seconds since the last lip wetting. So I think that she is indeed nervous. She nods But when she nods and acknowledges that there's going to be, some acknowledgement of what is going on with her case, she presses her lips at the same time. There's a tad of frustration in there. And when she begins to nod repeatedly, okay, so there's some allegations, she keeps her eyes closed. There's a very long blink in there, and a long blink is when you don't want to be there, when you find that question uncomfortable, when you don't want to talk about the topic. And people do long blinks like to detach themselves from the circumstances they are going through. It's very easy to spot them because, it's like kind of they close their eyes for a couple seconds.
Address them here, but I'm just going to put it out so people understand that a property that was owned in Virginia, a mortgage that you signed.
I noticed a kind of a smile of contempt right there when the host says that what you own in Virginia, I didn't have a mark for that, but you're going to see that the corner of the lip, see, we go forward. You notice that? You notice that it doesn't happen that much with the right corner, but the left corner, her left corner, you know what it does this? She presses her lips, but the left corner is kind of a contempt. Yeah, it's a contempt gesture. Why do you want to? Why would you mention whatever I own in Virginia? I guess that's what's going through her mind at that moment.
In Virginia, a mortgage that you signed, if I'm not mistaken.
Notice that she almost nodded in there. Almost nodded, but she made sure to not move her head. Look at she's going to do that.
Mortgage that you signed, if I'm not mistaken, for that property.
There was a very slight nod, but she's trying to contain herself. She knows that even her body language can give her away. So that's why she's controlling herself so much.
That they say you falsely represented yourself as a resident of...
Okay, she is acknowledging that she falsely represented herself, and she's again nodding with the lip pressing. She's repeating that gesture.
Resident of Virginia, and that was essentially amounts to mortgage fraud since you're a resident.
Kind of a pacifying gesture. I think nothing to see here.
New York. What is your response to that?
There was another, this one I did mark, in which you can see there was another lip pulling that seems contempt. You see it, right? You see that the right lip corner is not moving. Very easy to spot that this doesn't move. But if I go in slow motion, back and forth, you see that the left lip corner moves in a kind of a contempt gesture. She doesn't do that the other time. So being asked that question again, maybe she's feeling, she doesn't like it. She doesn't like it. Don't ask the question again. Do not press on that question because I don't like to be answering that.
It's baseless. Everybody knows I'm a resident of New York, specifically Brooklyn. And again, we will...
Notice that there was, again, another long blink in there when she said that she's a resident of New York, specifically Brooklyn.
And again, we will respond at the appropriate time in the appropriate way to these baseless allegations.
She's using the head shaking to emphasize the baseless allegations. She already did that back then when she was talking about the baseless allegations. But it's more like the blinking, the rapid blinking that is giving away that she's nervous and she's not so sure what is going to be the outcome of this. So, yes, and sometimes we see that there's something that repeats. It's okay, so it's something that is happening. We know that she's nervous, but...
way to these baseless allegations.
Yeah, she's using that shaking of the head to emphasize more than anything.
And some media outlets.
And some kind of a single shoulder shrug, but again, it's very hard to spot.
Media outlets like the Daily News over the weekend has indicated as much.
That's all you want to say?
That's all that I'm going to say.
Okay, that last gesture, I think that sealed the deal. Again, a lot of nervousness. I think that she doesn't know what is going to be the actual outcome of this process. I think that she's nervous. She's concerned. of what is going to be found about her actual, well, all these accusations of mortgage fraud and, well, so many frauds that we listed them in another video. But again, I would like to know what you think about this in the comments. Remember to download my 100 body language tips in the description of this video and in the pinned comment. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Much love and bliss.